So that's we got a double header and then a double header. You know, sometimes in baseball you get a rain out, you get another rain out. Team plays a double header, then the next day they play another double header. So we've got Tazria Mitzora this week, and then we have Achremos Kedoshim the next week. Whoa. Then we have a break. We have Emor alone, and then we have Bahar and B'chukosai. So we get 7 parshas in 4 days. That's fun. You got 7 parshas. It's like playing 7 games in 4 days, that sort of thing. So we got there's quite a bit. I was at the dentist this morning. He said to me, yeah, just don't, you can't eat for an hour and a half. So I didn't eat for about an hour and a half, which is probably the longest I've gone without eating since the beginning of Pesach. That's the longest gap I've had between eating. Yeah. Yeah. All right. In any event, so we're on Parshas Tazria, so let's take a look. Page 608. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor. Daber al bnei Yisrael lemor. Isha ki Tazria v'yolda zochar. When a woman gives birth to a male, v'tama shivas yamim. She is tummy for 7 days. Ki mei nidas devosa titma. The length of the period of her nida. Nida actually comes from the word nadad, which means to move away. Because even in outside of Jewish circles, a woman who was a nida, a woman who had menstruated, she was kind of there were certain tribes where they put these women alone in a tent. They would be in a tent. You were secluded for the period until a woman stopped bleeding, and devosa means that she's in discomfort, according to some emotional discomfort. Women who are they're in pain, and they could even without pain they become very low, very borderline depressed when this happens, and she becomes tummy. Now, what's remarkable here, I got to tell you something remarkable. This actually goes back to last week's Parsha, but it connects to this word. The word zachar is a male. Now, I've mentioned to you in the past that the numerical value of male is 227. A zayin is 7, a chaf is 20, and a resh is 200. It's 227, which is the same numerical value as bracha, which is a blessing. Isn't that interesting? Nekeva, which is female, comes from the word curse. Bilam said, Ma ekov lo kabo kel. How could I curse the Jewish people if God hasn't cursed? So Zachar is blessing, Nekeva is curse. What are you going to do with that, Jonathan? All right, the women's rights people will be up in arms. I can't help the fact that that's what the word means and that's what the numerical value is. I can't help that. Those are fact. What does it really mean, though, chas v'shalom, that a woman is a curse, a bracha? What does it really mean? The nature of a man, the word bracha is the same exact letters as the Hebrew word brecha. A brecha is a spring, an overflowing spring. Nekeva, we actually find the actual word nekeva in a different context. Do you remember where it was? Do you remember we spoke about this once? Take a look all the way back in Parshas Vayetze. Hold the place over here. Go back to page 150. Is this where it is? 1 second. You have to see this inside. This is... Maybe it's not there. It's a little later on. Just 1 second. I want you to see this inside. It's worth... where Yaakov and... here we go. Here it is, page 158, second line. This is where Yaakov, after having buried his daughters and he has his children, he says, listen, I got to earn something for myself. So on page 158, if you look at the second line from the top, it says, Vayomar, Lavan says to Yaakov, Nokva schorcha olai ve'etena. Now, how does the ArtScroll translate the price? Specify your wage to me. Nokva schorcha, it's the exact same word as nekeva. and it's the same root as the word ekov, which is to curse. Now, what does that mean? That means that what Lavan is saying to Yaakov is, let's set a price over here. That means let's create a limitation. Let's create a limitation. We're not going to leave this open-ended. What's the difference between, what's a brecha? What's a spring? Overflowing water. The water is overflowing. It keeps going out and producing. It's jumping all over the place. The nature of a man, in most cases, is he's a brecha. Man's all over the place. Man's looking out, what can I do tomorrow? What's a new job? For a man, a steady job means you've been working there 2.5 weeks. You're already thinking about a new job. When do I get promoted? Men always have these ideas when it comes to the investments. It's like the guy says to his wife, we could take our life savings. We could pawn 2 of the children and go for the big one. He's always out there. The man is always out there. Now he's out there in that way. He's out there in all areas. Man's always got grand plans. A woman is a nurturer, right? Let's communicate. a woman is a nurturer. That's why a woman can take a baby for 9 months. I looked at my daughter-in-law. I had 2 daughter-in-laws gave birth recently, a couple of months ago, one a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they're walking around with this thing on their belly, and you know what? No man could do that. Give me some waterboarding is easier than that. They're walking. She's a nurturer. She's a developer. She wants to set it. So the husband-wife relationship works because the husband is out there and the wife is the one who's pulling him in. Let's set a price. Let's keep it over here. Let's play it safe. For the most part, sometimes you get the opposite, but it's rare. For the most part, she says, what is the nature of a bracha? A bracha means increase. What's a curse? A curse means limitation. So it's in the nature of a man to always look to be increasing. Men are restless. A wife is more settled, more poised, more, let's keep it under control over here. So the difference between you have a zochar, which is the same numerical value as bracha, and that's why Lavan says to Yaakov Avinu, let's set a price. We're not going to leave this open-handed that you're going to end up with shares in the business. Whatever the deals they are, they give these CEOs, these businesses, and you get a what's it called when you're a salesman and you get the what's it called, part of the sales? What's it called? You get a commission. None of that business. Let's get a price over. How much you get? You're getting minimum wage. How much are you getting per hour? Let's settle it down. Let's keep it settled. Let's just keep it over here. Where we know exactly what's going on. I told you, I told you this. My older brother, I was about how old was I? I was about 19. My younger brother was about 14, and my dad. My older brother was married, living in Israel. They had their first kid. So this was the first grandson in the family. So my mom left. She came to Israel to be with them for a couple of weeks, to help out with the new baby, his first baby. She left. The instant she walked out the door, the TV came onto the kitchen table, Sports Illustrated, the sporting news. Our kitchen table looked like the ESPN newsroom, right? And it was just my dad, my brother, and I always tell people it was the best 2 weeks of my life, right? There was no speaking, there was no talking at the table whatsoever. Everybody was either like this or watching a TV or doing like that. All you heard periodically was a grunt, meat, potatoes. It was unbelievable. And then, a half hour before my mom's supposed to come home, my dad goes into a panic. Get this place cleaned up, get it all. And she comes, and then the next night we're at supper. So how was your day? Let's communicate. That sort of thing. I'm telling you, if you ever want to figure out what was Gan Eden like, what's paradise, what awaits us, I'm telling you. It was unbelievable. It was, I would call it. So and I'm telling you, we didn't see a vegetable for 2 weeks. It was meat and potatoes. And my dad was always, okay, because he was making it, he said, so what do you want with the meat, guys? How about French fries? It was every night. After going around, what could it possibly be, Dad? It ends up as French fries. So that is the nature. You have the male, and you have the female. Now, what happened last week? Now this is incredible. Now stay with this. This is unbelievable. You had the 2 sons of Aaron who died because they brought in an offering they weren't asked to bring in. Nadav and Avihu on the day of the what's it called? The coronation, the inauguration. Thank you. The inauguration of the Mishkan. while they're having this celebration, they brought in a Ketoris offering, which they weren't asked to bring in, and they died. So the Gemara and the Midrashim bring various reasons why did they die. I want you to listen carefully. So it says, one of the reasons is because they saw, the Midrash says they saw Moshe and Aaron walking, and they said, when are these two guys going to die and we'll take over the leadership of the people? Which, by the way, at a deeper level, the commentators explain that it wasn't because they were power hungry, but because they were on such a high level, which Moshe says to Aaron afterwards. The Midrash says, Moshe said to Aaron, I knew there was going to be a demonstration of God at this inauguration. I thought it was going to be either me or you. Now I see they're on a higher level than we are. So the commentators explain what they really wanted was to take over the leadership to bring the people to a higher level. Okay, that's at a deeper level. Hey, Shmuel, that's at a deeper level. However, the Midrash says they said to each other, when are we going to take over the leadership? When are they going to die and we'll take over the leadership? Number one. There's another reason is because they pasked in front of their Rebbe. They were Moreh Hora Bifnei Rabban. In other words, you made a halachic decision, and the Gemara says that somebody, a student who renders a halachic decision in front of his Rebbe is liable for the death penalty at the hands of heaven, right? But he's forfeited his life because that's the ultimate disrespect is to go, your Rebbe is right here, what are you paskening for? Why are you paskening? I once had a friend of mine, it was I think a Chol Hamoed, either Chol Hamoed Pesach or Chol Hamoed Sukkos. I was visiting by my parents, and I was davening in the local yeshiva, and something happened with Yalav Yavo. I forgot it, or I said it too many times, whatever it was that happens with Yalav Yavo. And I didn't know if I have to repeat Shemona Esrei or not. So I went over, I saw a friend of mine who learned in Kolo with me, and he was talking to a big Rav who I knew. So I walked over to this Rav to ask, I said, do I have to repeat the Shemona Esrei? So my friend, before the Rav could say anything, my friend, I don't remember, he said, yes, no, whatever it is, he answered. He said, yeah, you do. I looked at the Rav, and the Rav went like that. So I went over, and I repeated the Shemona Esrei. After I repeated my Shemona Esrei, my friend comes over and he says, by the way, after you left, he turned to me and said, you realize you're chayiv misa now, don't you? You realize you're liable for the death penalty now, don't you? Don't do it again. Now, you notice the Rav was very tactful. He waited for me to leave first so the guy wouldn't be embarrassed. And B, he let the guy know exactly that he had a flaw, which is sometimes in life uncomfortable, but you got to let him know that. So none of an Avihu were guilty of that, number two. There's another opinion that they didn't consult with each other. Actually, when I saw one of the sources said that they ended up meeting in that each one had the same idea. They didn't consult with each other. And all of a sudden they ended up in the Holy of Holies. And like, yo, bro, what are you doing here? and it's so much so that had only one of them gone in, he wouldn't have died. And the flaw was that because two people are not supposed to be, the Torah says that two people aren't supposed to be in there at the same time. So according to some, so they didn't consult with each other. There's another opinion that they did not get married and have children. And one of the reasons is because they felt nobody's at our level. There's no girl here that's at our level that we could that's suitable for us to marry. There's another reason that says they had drunk wine. So there are about 7 different reasons that are given. So I saw it. Now listen, this is remarkable. One of the commentators in the Sivas Sholem, he says like this: everybody has a role to play. And when you go back to the male-female relationship, and we spoke about this last week or before Pesach, there's what's called the mashpia, the one who provides the energy, and there's the nishpa, which is the one who receives the energy. In the male-female relationship, the male is the mashpia, he's the energy, the woman is the receiver. Male is force, and female is the receiving end. Now, you have a Rebbe and you have a Talmud. The Rebbe is meant to be the mashpia. The Rebbe is the one who's supposed to give it over. The Talmud is supposed to be the receiver. So if you took a look at it in metaphorical terms, what would you call the Rebbe? He's the male, and the Talmud is the female. What did Nadav and Avihu want? Nadav and Avihu were in a state where they're supposed to be receivers now. They're not the leaders now. Moshe Rabbeinu is the Rebbe. They're still Talmidim. He taught them the Torah. So they should be followers right now. What did they want to do? They want to jump the gun. They want to be the giver. They want to be the energy. That's their flaw. And that's the common denominator in all of these midrashim. Right? Let's take them one at a time. When are these two guys going to die and we're going to take over? If you want to go from receiver to energy, right? They didn't consult with each other. I'm not willing to receive from you. I'm not willing to receive from you. What was the other one? They paskin in front of the Rabbi. There's that energy again. They didn't get married and have children. Now, what's remarkable is that this is true in many places in life. When you should have been, what you shouldn't have done, you did. You shouldn't have been in energy, and you'd tried to be in energy. So where you should be in energy, you're not going to be the energy. You should have gotten married. That you should have done. That you didn't do. You always find that it's the things what I'm not supposed to do, I did it. Then what I am supposed to do, which I heard from my parents on a regular basis growing up. But well, all of a sudden, this you want to do, right? This is the fun stuff. This you want to do, right? We asked you for help on Pesach. The stuff that we wanted you to do, you don't want to do. Now I'm doing something fun, usually with an electric appliance or something. You know, hey, could I do that? You know, that's always fun. No, this all of a sudden you want to do that we don't need you for. That, right? Now, the one that's puzzling here is what about the fact that they drank wine? What's that got to do with this? What's that got to do with this? You want to hear something incredible? Absolutely incredible. The Gemara says a woman who gets drunk, a woman who drinks wine, she behaves like a male. Which I'm sure anybody who's ever been on a college campus for any great length of time, like about 4 minutes, has seen that a woman starts behaving like a man. The Gemara says very uncomplimentary things about women who are drunk and what they're capable of. But she's turning herself into a male. She's becoming more aggressive. She's becoming more right? She's more active. She's more aggressive. What's remarkable is that the numerical value of Nekeva is how much, Meir?
157.
And what's the numerical value of Zachar?
We said it, it's
20.
227.
And what's the difference between them? 70, which is the numerical value of Yayin, wine. Wine. You put wine into a nekeva, and what do you get? You get a male, right? So when it says that they were drunk, they had drunk wine, what's it really telling us? What, you think they weren't a couple of Irish guys from a tavern, who couldn't walk a straight line. We're talking about what it means. What it's telling us is that they have, so to speak, imbibed wine, which takes them from the nekeva state to the zachar state. How do you like that? How do you like that? The entire flaw here is jumping the gun. What's that?
Is a classic strategy in all parties and stuff. Is like just get them drunk.
Yeah, right. Of course, that's always the idea. They always have there's got to be what's it called, a punch bowl that's been spiked with lots of vodka, and then the girls dive in like a fish out of water. They dive in. Then the next day, oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, you're drunk. She's drunk like a saloon, right? Oh, I can't believe she got herself good and drunk. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, you're right. And then the next night she's at the party again, drinking even more. Yeah. So yeah.
What was Nekeva?
Nekeva is female, 157.
Okay.
157. Okay. So here when it says over here a woman gets birth, if she gives birth to a male, so she becomes tameh 7 days. Okay. Back on 608. Now, there's a. The next pasuk says, "Uvayom hashmini yimol b'sar orloso." On the 8th day, he is circumcised. On the 8th day, he's circumcised, and many different explanations for why the number 8 why the number 8 for bris milah. If we have time, we'll go into it. But I just want to point out something. You're aware that if Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, one of the days of Rosh Hashanah comes on Shabbos. So what's the halacha as far as shofar?
No shofar.
No shofar. There's no shofar. What about if the first day of Sukkot comes out on Shabbos? No lulav and esrog. Why not? Why not? You might carry it in the public place. The Rabbanan made a decree that you might carry it in a public place. So here we have a special halacha. If bris milah comes out smack on the 8th day, even if the 8th day is Shabbos, you do the bris on Shabbos. I was just at a bris yesterday. We had in our neighborhood a bris on Shabbos. And even though it's an elective surgery you never do on Shabbos, Emergency surgery, you do. Elective surgery, you would never desecrate Shabbos for an elective surgery. Bris Milah is an elective surgery. Yet the Torah says it's done on the 8th day. So one of the commentaries asks, well, why is it that if lulav and shofar, they made a decree not to do it on Shabbos because of the concern you might carry? So what about the fact that on Bris Milah you might carry the baby, you might carry the knife? Why didn't they make a decree not to do the Bris Milah on Shabbos? Why did they make a decree only by shofar and esrog? They didn't make the decree by Bris Milah. Interesting question, right? And the Gemara talks about what you do when you carry the knife on Shabbos. The guy got to cover it up. If they're how you carry it, what you do, and it talks about what happens when you have to carry it. Nobody does a bris in the house. Very few people do the bris in the house. And you're going to be in a shul or something. The likelihood of something being carried, either the moil, the circumciser, has to come to the baby, or the baby has to go to him. One way or another, something's going to be carried. He's going to carry his equipment. The baby's going to carry what he calls. So something's going to be carried. So how is it? Why didn't they make a rabbinic decree not to do it on Shabbos? What do you say? What do you say, Miguel?
Isn't the bris and Shabbos both considered part of the covenant? So wouldn't that be like the one thing?
Good. Let's take it, make it a little, sharpen it up a little. Sharpen it just a little bit more. You're very close. You're very close. Let's sharpen it up a little. No pun intended. Right? Let's sharpen it up a little bit. Okay. So by the way, I'm the farthest guy in the room when this happens. At a bris, it's not for me. I don't like that. No. The whole thing is not. I've even held the baby. I've been a sandik. As soon as he puts the baby in my lap, the diaper's still on. He puts the baby in my lap, my eyes are closed. And I just say to the guy, tell me when it's over. And I don't open them up until I know that it's good and over. You got to hold the legs apart. It's a mitzvah. It's a very big mitzvah to tell the baby, I'm willing to do it, but my eyes are closed. Right? My eyes are closed, and they don't what do you call it? It's not, people look, you see people like, look, it's not for me. It even says in the benching, when you have the celebration at a bris, when we bench, so there are 6 harachamans that you say, various, that they added. One of them is that the man ha'isha yoreh v'rach levav, somebody who is a cowardly and faint of heart, is not qualified to be a moel. Every time they read that one, I just feel like raising my hand. Right here, okay, here we are. So the what do you call it? So the answer, what the commentaries say is, by the other mitzvahs, lulav, esrog, there was one other one besides lulav and esrog. What's the other one that we do? Lulav, esrog, shofar. There's something else where they also make, Megillah, right? We don't, it doesn't say anywhere, do it on Shabbos. Here it says, on the 8th day you do it. If it's smack on Shabbos, you have to do it. But even more than that, the actual mitzvah here is by definition a violation of Torah. A lulav and an esrog is not a violation of any Torah laws. What do you call it? Megillah is not a violation of a Torah law. Doing an elective surgery is an actual violation of the Torah laws. We know it. If you would ask me, could you do a bris milah on Shabbos? I say no, because the rules of Shabbos is you can't do elective surgery, yet the Torah says, do this elective surgery on Shabbos. So we're certainly not going to make a rabbinic decree not to do it. By the other ones, it's not a violation, so you need a rabbinic decree. It doesn't say to do it on Shabbos. Here, it says do it on Shabbos, in spite of the fact that it itself is something that normally wouldn't be done on Shabbos. So we're certainly not going to make a rabbinic decree not to do it, once the Torah says to do it, number one. So there's an interesting shaila that was asked in South America. There was a Rav at a South American community, a frum Rav, and somebody had a baby, and there was going to be a bris, and the bris was supposed to be on Shabbos. My son had a bris. My son, about 3 months ago, he made a bris on Rosh Hashanah. He had a Rosh Hashanah bris, the what do you call it, Rosh Hashanah bris. My other son had two. Well, one was on Shabbos, and one was on Shabbos. I think both of them were Shabbos brises. When my other son had 2 Shabbos brises, this one had a Rosh Hashanah bris. This last one was the day after Yontif. It was on Pesach. My other son had a baby. His wife went into labor, and she went into labor on Wednesday. the Wednesday before Pesach, and my son said to her, I'm not driving you to the hospital before Shkia. Because he didn't want the baby born, because the baby born on Shkia, then would have a Yontif bris on Pesach, which is a whole, would make things complicated. He said, I'm not driving, don't go into labor now, don't have the baby till after Shkia. She cooperated for once. So the baby was born well after Shkia. I was so proud of him. The what do you call it? You got to lay down the law with them. Otherwise they're going to push you around, Blake. You got to lay down the law. So so this Rav had a shaila. They have a bris on Shabbos in South America. People will be driving on Shabbos. For sure, people will desecrate Shabbos to drive to the bris. So he wanted to know, should they put the bris off till Sunday in order to avoid Shabbos desecration, just like you see that the Chachamim made various decrees not to break Shabbos? What would you say? You should or you shouldn't, and why? What do you say, Shmuel? You should or you shouldn't, and why? I want to know why.
Postpone it?
Yeah.
No, I think...
Why?
Because I think there's two separate things. No, one is that you have to do the Dafka that day.
But you know people are going to desecrate Shabbos here. You know for sure people are going to be driving on Shabbos.
But it's like also like inviting someone to a meal, no? It's like going by...
If you invite somebody to the meal, and this is a question, a very common question, if you know somebody's going to drive to your house on Shabbos for a meal, you don't invite them. You don't invite them. All Kiruv leniencies notwithstanding, the biggest poskim say you don't do that. There are various dubious leniencies that people sometimes, but like Rav Elyashiv says, isn't it ridiculous to want to teach somebody about Shabbos observance by having him break Shabbos? The Torah is not ours to, the Torah is not ours to stretch. The halacha says you don't do it. What about the fact that we'll makar of him and we'll make him firm and save his soul? That's not for us. Hashem cares about them more than we do. And if he said don't do it this way, we don't do it this way. So over here, you're going to avoid people from breaking Shabbos. So what do you say? You should put it off or not put it off? What do you say, Miguel?
I would say you shouldn't put it off.
You don't put it off. Good. You're right. You don't put it off. Why? Why don't you put it off? It's deoraisa, but what about the fact that people are going to do?
You don't have control over that. So let's say you know that if you cook a meal, if you have good food on Shabbos.
Not what I want. I want to know. I want a Gemara answer. I want a Gemara. What do you say, Mir?
I was thinking perhaps since we have to run to make the mitzvahs, and this mitzvah has to be precisely in the very moment that Isabel.
But what about the Shabbos desecration? You're not telling me about Shabbos, and you see that the Chachamim made tekanos. What about lulav? Lulav is an important mitzvah. Shofar is an important mitzvah. Shofar on Rosh Hashanah in Chachamim they said put it off because people like here. What do you say?
I don't know. In by Messiah, it's this thing that we're not like they can't be a shaliach for some.
Shliach l'dvar aveira. I'm not a shliach l'dvar aveira over.
But you're not asking them to do it. I mean.
Okay. Oh, I hear. Okay. The answer is that we can't go and make rabbinic decrees. What the Rabbanan made rabbinic decrees, they can make rabbinic decrees. We cannot, since the time of the Gemara, we do not have the ability to go make decrees. Yeah. The Torah says to do it, you got to do it. What about number one? But even more than that, who were the rabbinic decrees made for? Rabbinic decrees were made for people who were trying to observe Shabbos. And we don't want them to make a mistake and then accidentally carry something on Shabbos. Here you talk about people who are flagrantly desecrating Shabbos. I could go make a decree to help the flagrant desecrators. That's what you say, Miguel.
I mean, that makes a lot. I wasn't going to think.
That's what I thought of the first reason. The first reason I thought of it, because that's that you find all the time. Nowadays, people make suggestions all the time. Why don't the rabbis make a decree? Nobody can make decrees nowadays. Somebody once said nobody should buy a home on a high floor in a building because we have to make a decree because people might use elevators on Shabbat. Yeah, that's ridiculous. There's no end to that sort. First of all, the idea is silly. Number two, nobody's got the ability. Nobody can make decrees. A rav of a community, a rabbi of a community, could make certain boundaries and guidelines for his community for certain reasons that he's allowed to do. But you can't go and make rabbinic decrees. You go, oh, let's just like the Rabbanan did. That we don't have the ability to do. That's what it is. Rav Waldenberg was it. Tzitz Eliezer was the biggest poskim in our generation. He said that's what he said. He can't again. Number one, and then he said the logic, which is very sharp logic, that the rabbinic decrees anyway were made for people who were conscientiously trying to avoid running into here. You talk about people who don't care, who couldn't care less. I could go make a rabbinic decree. Even if you could, the Rabbanan wouldn't make a decree over here. There's anyway a rule. Let's say you go and ask her of a shaila. Am I allowed to eat this meat? And the Rav says, no, the meat's not kosher. You say, listen, if you don't allow me to eat the meat, I'm going to take off my yarmulke and I'm going to convert to Christianity. I'm going to throw away the entire Torah. How do you respond to that?
Let him do what he's going to do.
Okay, listen, if you want, I know one Rav said to the guy, here's money. He said to the guy, here's some money, so when you buy a cross, make sure you buy a real nice one. We disregard threats. You can't threaten. That's the halacha. What do you threaten? You threaten me? Don't. It's not me who's forcing you to do this. I'm telling you what the halacha is. You want to do it? Go convert. It's not me who's forcing you. Okay. A fascinating thing. This idea of the idea of the bris and when you make a rabbinic decree, you don't make a rabbinic decree. That sort of thing. I saw a shaila once. A girl who was what's it called? She had Down syndrome, I think. She had Down syndrome, and her sister was getting married, and this girl said to her sister, she said to her parents, she also wants to wear a white wedding gown at the wedding. She wants to stand under the chuppah with her sister and wear a white wedding gown. Can she wear a white wedding gown at the, like a bridal gown? Because she knows she'd never get married. She wants to also feel she's getting married. So they asked the Rav. And the Rav gave a whole answer why this, that, the other. Gentlemen, what's the answer? What's the answer? The answer is she's allowed to do it. There's no halacha that says that you can't wear a white gown. May not be a great idea, and make sure that the guy doesn't say Arayat Mekudeshesli and put the ring on the wrong finger over there. Just make sure you got the right girl, that sort of thing. There's no halacha. You can't go say, well, yeah, it's a decree in case people will think that she's married. Rav Moshe Feinstein, when he was asked about a man wearing a wedding ring, what's it called? A wedding ring. Rav Moshe says it's not prohibited in communities where the wedding ring is where for men. You're not going to find a whole lot of male wearing wedding rings in Mea Shearim and in Bnei Brak, in Israel. But where there's nothing wrong. That's not considered a woman's garment. That's a man's. That's because a man's wearing a ring and he's wearing a ring on his ring finger. Is what they call it. It's not wearing a stud or wearing whatever it is they wear nowadays. All this stuff. But a guy's got a ring on his finger. It's not a problem. But it shouldn't be given to him under the chuppah, because then you run into a halachic problem. Because then it looks like he's acquiring her and she's acquiring him, which is not what's happening. Only he gives her the ring. He doesn't give it. So he said, yeah, it's no problem, but not under the chuppah. Don't exchange rings under the chuppah. That creates halachic problems. So you can do it afterwards. If you want to give him a ring. Right? But not what do you call it? I saw a girl once girl started talking to me somewhere. And she opens her mouth. She had a stud in her tongue. Like, really? I'm like, you know how many problems that could create? What if she swallows the thing? What about the pain? What about nobody even sees it till you talk, and nobody wants to hear you talk, so nobody's going to see it. My goodness. Unbelievable. My brother just told me this morning that they had in Israel, they now opened up on one of these highways where if you have 3 passengers in the car, a lane, you have 3 passengers in the car. So apparently,
It's called like high occupancy vehicle lane.
What's it called? HOV. HOV sounds like a disease, right? But he said so. They had in California. I remember when they first opened up like one of these what's it called, a carpool lane in California. So the first thing that happened was some guy had a dummy in there. They put a dummy in the seat. Cop stops him and he's got a dummy. He's driving. Why are you laughing? You look like you're surprised. No. Okay. So I remember that was like the first. That was like the first carpool lane in America. We're going back a long time. We're probably going back about 40 years. And some guy got stopped because he had put a dummy in his car. The cop stopped. Okay. Then my brother told me this morning, there's another guy who had a dog in his car. And the cop stopped him. And he went to court. He said, it's 2 passengers. I have another passenger in my car. Right? And he went to court with it. So there the court actually ruled against him, and then they changed the law. It's got to be 2 humans. 2 people in the car, not 2 passengers, 2 people. Gentlemen, question, what would happen nowadays? What would happen in that court case nowadays? They would probably say to him, what were you doing in the car? You know, you should have 2 dogs in the car, not a human. What are you doing in the car? The dog's much more important than you are. Could you imagine? Can you imagine you ask that question nowadays? Nowadays they'd be ridiculous. So I think, I don't know if this one is 3 I have a passenger, I have a dog. And my reaction is, well, the dog's obviously more intelligent than the judge, that's for sure. You know, that's where we're holding. Okay, good, I got that off my chest. Okay, now let's go on. Take a look. The first thing that it says over here in, if you take a look and skip down, now we get to the meat and potatoes over here. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe ul Aaron lemor. Adam ki yihye be'or besaro, a person who has in his flesh, se'eso sapachas o beheres, he has various types of afflictions. V'hoya be'or besaro l'negat tzaras. This is called an affliction of tzaras. V'huva el Aaron HaKohen el echad mibanav HaKohanim. And now he's brought to Aaron HaKohen or to one of his sons, the Kohanim. So you have over here a pair together. Now where does tzaras come from? The most common, the Gemara, the most common cause of tzaras is what? Lashon hara. But it could come from being haughty, it could come from being selfish. But the most common cause, the association that we make with tzaras is always lashon hara. Okay. It's called a nega. Where does the word nega mean? It means to touch. Right? Nogea. Nogea means to touch. Why is this called, why is tzaras, why is it affliction? How does he translate it? An affliction, right? Affliction of kind of a nega. Why is an affliction called a touch? Why is it called a touch? God, the affliction of tzaras is called a touch, a nega. So, anybody got an idea? Where does tzaras come from? Talking lashon hara, let's say. Okay, guys, talking lashon hara. You can get it on the houses, right? You can get it on the houses. It can come on a garment, and it can go on a person's body. So it's not considered. It's a physiological manifestation. That means the person's in discomfort when he has tzaras, but it's not a bacteria, and it's not caused by a bacteria. And it's not catching. It's not contagious, but it's a physical manifestation. How did it get there? It didn't get there from a physical cause. How did it get there? It got there from a spiritual cause. What's the proof? Well, one proof is that a person who's got tzaras, a person's got an outbreak on his arm. Who does he go to? Who would you normally go to? No, you go to a doctor. Who does he go to? The Kohen. Goes to the Kohen, who's least qualified to be a doctor. Kohen can't even become a doctor if he's got to work on cadavers. Nowadays, a Kohen, Rabbi Feinstein said a Kohen cannot become a doctor because in medical school you got to work on cadavers, which means you come in contact with the body. Apparently things have changed. Somebody told me they asked Rabbi Feinstein's son, Rabbi Dovid Feinstein, that's all, who was the biggest posek in America, and he said that the Rabbi Dovid Feinstein said that as long as he doesn't have to work on cadavers, apparently in medical schools the circumstances have changed, and they work on dummies, so you don't have to work on cadavers. Apparently the crime at one point in New York went down, so the crime was down in New York, so there was a shortage of cadavers in medical schools. That's a joke. But the way to go, apparently they stopped working on actual cadavers. But a Kohen, he's not a doctor. You're going to a Kohen. The Kohen takes a look at it and he decides, and sometimes he's got to close you off for another week and let's see if it's spread. Puts little pencil, marks with a pen to see if it goes past the borders. And he goes, back and forth. And at the end of the day, it's what do you call it? At the end of the day, he's not a doctor, which proves that it's not a bacterial disease. It's not a physiological disease. It's a physiological manifestation. Not only that, you don't examine a person on Yontif. If a person in the middle of Pesach, all of a sudden starts saying, we're closed. Kohen's on vacation for Pesach. Anyway, guy's got a disease, so you're not going to check him. And in the holidays when Yerushalayim was crowded with people, which is the worst time to be walking around with some sort of bacterial infection. You don't check any people now. And now that the Kohen doesn't check the folds. He doesn't check the folds. He doesn't know if the folds. He takes a look at he just takes a look at it. He doesn't look. He doesn't check to see maybe you have something in the folds of the body. Person's got one of these rare diseases, tropical disease. The doctor checks every part of his body. So it's not a physiological cause. What's the cause? A spiritual cause. Now think about this. Two guys are in the back room whispering some lashon hara. And that evening, one of the guys looking at his arms like, whoa, what is that? Did I eat something spicy? Was that a Chinese restaurant today? What is that? And all of a sudden, and where's it coming from? You've been touched. Nega, you've been touched. Kodesh Baruch Hu's touched you. A touch, when you touch somebody, with one finger, you touch somebody, very specific. I'm touching this point. It's a very specific touch. A negat saras means that you're a very specific, this is a demonstration of Hashem's direct involvement in the world. There's a very direct involvement over here that he's touching this person very, very specifically, what we call hashgacha pratis. That's why it's called a nega. All right, we'll see tomorrow. We'll go into more about the tzaras, all the fun. Really cheerful parsha. Really cheerful, yeah.